Hey guys, welcome to the Neglected Podcast. This podcast is not to change your mind, but to invite you into somebody else's narrative. This is a podcast to give a voice to the neglected. It is also an opportunity for all of us to engage.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Neglected Podcast. My name is Nick Schultz. You can hit me up at Schultz time. We are at City Church. You can reach us at For the Neglected. I got our producer, Quinn. What's going on, man? Thanks for being here. We have a special guest. Her name is Karima Burdette. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm really excited for you to be here today. And just from the little that I know of your story, from what I've seen online and what you have just shared with me before we got started, I think got some really powerful things to share that are going to help a lot of people in a lot of different areas of their life, just to hear what you've been through. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here. Really grateful. Thank you.
Well, let's get started with little Karima and where you are from, where you grew up, and what your life was like and your family was like when you were little.
Okay, so I was born in Morocco, in Northwest Africa. The reason I say Northwest Africa is because a lot of times people think I'm from Monaco and not Morocco. So
okay.
I always like to clarify that.
Well, I think most people don't even know where Morocco is,
exactly.
So you probably need to say
so
that
I was
anyway.
so I always put that in. So my family was Muslim, both sides. My parents were Muslim. My parents divorced when I was about 2 years old, and my mom couldn't really take care of me because she never been to school when she was little, so she didn't really have a job per se. She found a nanny position in the city where we lived in Mohammadi at the time. And so she couldn't take care of me and work at the same time. So she took me to my grandparents' house. Mm-hmm. And she said, do you mind, keeping her while I work? And so they said, okay. So I grew up with my grandpa, my grandma, 2 uncles and 3 aunts. And I was the youngest one. They pretty much took me in like their little sister. So I grew up with them. And then in 1981, my mom met my stepdad, who was from France. And he proposed to her. They got married after 2 months. They went to France, and the thing is with that is, she was kind of taken away from me because I couldn't go with her. He was an engineer at the time, and he traveled a lot. So she didn't feel comfortable taking me and just having me travel all over France and the world, really, because he traveled all over the place. So she decided to keep me in Morocco. But while I was there, my grandmother was not very nice. She had her moment where she was nice, but she was very controlling, pretty much told everybody what to do, and very abusive. So when I was about 7 years old, my mom didn't know about this till later, but when I was about 7 years old, my grandmother would have me and my aunts go to this market. We would get up about 4:30 in the morning, wake up in the dark, and because that's when all the people would go to buy their produce and things like that, so they can sell them later. So me and my aunts would just walk because we didn't have cars, we didn't have any of that. We would just walk to this market. And my aunts would talk to the seller and be like, yeah, I want this and I want that. And I'm in the background stealing and put it in the bag. And we had to bring a full bag or else we would get it, So there was no, I couldn't do it. We had to do what we were asked by my grandmother. And another thing too, in Morocco, we had nothing. I mean, I slept on the floor. I shared a blanket with my aunt. We didn't have, you can just walk into the kitchen and eat whatever you want. You ate whenever dinner was on the table. Mm-hmm. We had no TV, no phones, no toys. At age maybe 5, I was already doing chores like washing the floor, because it was all tile. No air conditioning. I walked to school about 4 miles every day. The Muslim religion, even though, I lived in a Muslim home and everybody practiced, I was little, so I didn't have to practice. But I did have to read the Quran, in school. And I had to memorize a lot of prayers, which actually I have one still stuck in my head. So because when you're born in Morocco, you are born into the religion. Like, it's not, you're not like a Christian person where you go to church And then eventually your parents, they're like, okay, are you ready to get baptized and, become a Christian? There you are born into it. So you better do what they tell you, or either if you don't do that, you just get in trouble. So you have to do exactly what they tell you there. But thankfully, like I said, because I was only 12, I was there till 12. I didn't have to do any of that. So that was a blessing. In 1986, my mom came back. She would come every year and visit me when I was in Morocco, which was very hard because she would come and I would be so excited to see her. But then she would leave again for a whole year, and that was devastating. As a little child, it would just kill me, and I would just cry my eyes out. And she had no clue where she was leaving me at. She thought, okay, I'm leaving her with my mom. She's in good hands, but I was not in good hands.
And you couldn't tell her
I was
that?
being beat up. No, I couldn't, because I would get in trouble.
Right.
So, and when she was there, my grandmother was super nice. She wouldn't make me do anything when my mom was there, But anyway, so my cousin was getting circumcised in Morocco. They do that. So he was getting circumcised, and we were having a big party for him, a big celebration. I was dancing, I think, at the time, and my grandmother got mad somehow. She came and tore my Moroccan dress that I had on, which is like a takshita. It's called takshita. She just grabbed it and ripped it. And my mom saw what happened. And she was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing? What are you doing? What did she do to you? Why are you doing that to my daughter, So they started arguing. And that gave me the window to leave. My mother took me. She's like, I am not leaving my child here. So she told my dad, she said, I'm going to stay home. We're going to have to buy a house, and I'm going to stay home with my daughter. You're just going to have to travel by yourself.
Wow.
So before we get to leave Morocco, we had to get permission from my dad. My dad was abusive to my mom. That's the reason she left. But so we were kind of scared. We're like, he might even want to sign the paper. I might not be able to leave this country. So we show up, and my grandma goes, he's not here. He passed away 2 years ago.
What?
We're like, nobody told
Wow.
me.
Oh,
Nobody
man.
told me he passed away. My father. So I don't remember him very well because I didn't see him that much, I wished I saw him. So again, even though it was a bad thing, it was a blessing, because if he was there, it's possible that he would have said no, and I wouldn't be talking to you today.
Right.
I would still be in Morocco. So then we moved to France, and I was so excited because I was finally with my mom, and I had a bed and I had toys. So I was super excited to be there. But the challenge there was the fact that because I was Moroccan, I didn't speak very good French, and I was thrown into the school system into 7th grade. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand the teacher. The school never said, hey, let's help you. It was a mess. My mom couldn't help me because she'd never been to school. My dad wasn't there to help me. And I struggled in school. I didn't pass the first year. I didn't pass the second year. The third year, I was too old to stay in that class. So they had to put me in this class that, like, if you're not doing well, they put you in this class, and it's all just hands-on stuff where you learn how to cook and do different things until you're old enough to go to the next stage. And so after that, I decided to be a hairstylist. So I went to technical college, and I became a hairstylist. And at age 18, I was in Paris at the hair show there. They have this huge beauty and hair festival in Paris. And I was with my boss at the time. And this guy came up to me and he said, do you want to go to America? And I said, yeah, right. Like, this guy is going to put me on the street or something, He's like, no, I have 5 hair salons in America. And I'm looking for 24 hairstylists, and I would love to have you. They would love you over there. So I talked to my boss and I said, would you please look at this, make sure it's legit? And she said, yeah, it is. So I filled out the papers. 2 days later, I got the call. You're going for an exchange program to the US for 1.5 years. I was super excited, but I was terrified because I was 18. I was going to live without my family. And I was again going to leave my mom behind and I'd be with her. So I was really, really scared because I didn't know, what I was going to do, how it was going to happen when I got here. I didn't speak English. I finally just learned French.
Right.
So
That's what I was going to ask. Like, what state of mind are you in, and how do you view yourself before you even come over to America? Because you leave Morocco, you don't know the language, struggling with school. And was that the biggest thing you're struggling with? Or was it easy to connect with peers? Or did you have issues in other areas of your life while you were in France before you came over to America?
Yeah.
Or were you like, hey, I'm in a great place overall and here we go?
Yeah. Well, I was just grateful to have a bed when I moved to France.
Yeah.
I mean, when you come from that kind of environment in Morocco, when you don't have anything when you're growing up, let me tell you, anything is better. I mean, anything is better
than nothing, yeah.
because I'm like, hey, I have a bed and I have my mom. And I mean, I was just so excited. So the little things didn't matter. I was bullied at school. My last name was Baraka, my Barakat. And they called me Barracuda in school, and I had long hair down to all the way down to my back, and they would pull my hair and just kid stuff, and I felt out of place a lot of times because I was Moroccan and I had dark skin, and I would see these girls, they were blonde and white skin and blue eyes. I'm like, I want to be like them, but I want to blend in, but instead I stood out, and a lot of people picked on me, but it didn't really bother me just because of where I came from.
Right.
I was like, that's nothing. They can pick on me all they want. I'd rather do that than be stealing or be beat up by my grandmother, So I was just grateful to be in France. When I came to the U.S., I was put in Washington, D.C. I went from this small village in France to this huge city. And it was amazing because wow, this place is beautiful, just like I imagined. So being in the U.S. was my dream since I was a teenager. All about Michael Jackson, everything, just... so I always wanted to be here. So I'm so grateful for that. But when I came to the U.S., I met a guy in the military. I was 18. I was young and naive and stupid. And I got married very quickly. He was military. He was about to get stationed to Texas, and he asked me to marry him. So I decided to say yes. And after about 3 months of marriage, he started being very abusive, mentally, physically. I didn't speak the language. Didn't have any family here, and he knew it. So he had the upper hand, and he could do whatever he wanted to do.
You had nowhere to go.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, why would you want to hit me? Why are you doing that? He's like, I'm sorry, I'm just stressed out. It's always an excuse, And that went on for 5 years. He would hit me. He choked me. He called me names nonstop. My self-esteem was down to nothing. I didn't eat. I threw up every day. I cried every day. And I went down to 90 pounds. I was very unhealthy. And I ended up having a tachycardia attack that put me in the hospital. And they couldn't slow my heart down. So they went ahead and stopped it. And I was maybe about 22 years old at the time.
Wow.
I still managed to think, maybe there's a chance. Maybe we can make it work, And I stayed as long as I could. And then I started fearing for my life. And he told me, he's like, you leave me, I'm going to kill you. And I was terrified. I was so scared to leave. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell my family in Morocco, in France. I mean, my parents, because I was like, they're so far away. They already worry about me. If I tell them, they're going to be even more terrified. So it was just a really bad. And he, in front of people, he was like the nicest guy. And behind closed doors, he was a monster. And it was a bad time in my life. And I remember going to work. I actually would work extra time just to be away from him. And I remember driving sometimes, and I would see a tree, and I'm like, I just want to hit that tree. I just want this car to go and hit that tree and be done. I just want to be done. And then I would think about my mom, how much she loved me, and my dad and my little sisters. And like, I can't do that. I can't do that because it wouldn't be right. And, but one day I was crying on the couch, and this sermon was on TV. And, I was Moroccan, and I was Muslim, never really practiced. Because even when I was in France, I never practiced. My mother didn't really practice, and I didn't either. So, I believed in Allah. and at the time, and this guy came on and he's like, just bow your head and pray with me. So I just started praying with him, and I don't know what he was saying because I didn't really speak really good English at the time, but I repeated what he was saying. And I think that was the first seed that was planted in my heart, that Jesus put in my heart or the Lord put in my heart. And throughout the years after that, after getting divorced and getting away from this guy, which actually I had to get a restraining order. He was following me to threaten me, and he was a mess. Thankfully, he was military and he got stationed in Germany. So the Lord took him away somewhere else. But I was terrified. I had like 7 deadbolts on my door in my apartment because I was so scared of this guy. But after the years of being away from him, people would talk to me about Jesus. They're like, hey, come on to church. And I thought because I was Muslim, because my family is Muslim, I had to be Muslim. Because that's how I was born. There is no going back to something else. And I was terrified of even talking about another religion because, when you speak of Allah, it's such, Allah is like part of everything you do in Morocco. Like he's in almost every sentence that comes out of your mouth. And so it wasn't like the love you have with Jesus. Like, oh, Jesus loves me and I love him back. Allah is more like a fearful love or relationship, I should say. You're more like, oh, I'm scared he's gonna do something to me. So I was really scared to even put my foot in a church. So over the years that happened, and in 2001, I met my husband. I call him Superman because he got on the top of the globe in Savannah and proposed to me in a Superman outfit. But so he was a Christian, and he went to a church, and he took me with him. And I was sitting there listening to the sermon, and this feeling just came over me. Like, I don't know, I can't explain it. It was like the Holy Spirit just came over me, and I was like, wow, what is that? And I went home, and I kept thinking, what was that feeling that I just felt? It was the weirdest thing, but it was such peace. This peace that I've been looking for forever, and just not knowing who I was, and all the things that I've been through. Because when I was in my abusive relationship, I started like drinking and doing things, I shouldn't be doing, because I was trying to find comfort in something, because everybody else was failing me around me. And so I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted and all these things. And so to have that feeling at the church, it was just amazing. And so my husband asked me to marry him, and we went to see the pastor, and he said, well, we need to sit down and discuss this before you get married. He's like, well, what religion is she? And he said, well, she's Muslim. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't marry you. And my husband's, he was like, what do you mean you can marry us? He's like, sorry, she's not a Christian. You're unevenly yoked. I cannot marry you. And so we went home, and my husband said, listen, I'm going to marry you no matter what. I love you, and I'm not, being a Christian, it's your choice. I'm not going to make you become a Christian. Just you can marry me. So just don't worry about what he's saying. I'm going to marry you either way. So just think about it, and over time, I thought about it, and I talked to a friend of mine who was a Christian at my job, and she said, Karima, I think God has been after you for a long time. I think it's time to surrender to him. And when she said that, I said, you know what? That makes sense. All these times, all these people talking to me about the Lord and planting the seed in my heart, and all these things happening to me, and I should do that. And so I did. I became a Christian. I got baptized 19 years ago and became a Christian, and it's the best thing ever. So
well, that sounds like a happy ending, at least right now.
Yeah.
And we'll pick up from there in a little bit too, but I also want to go back to just the time period of when you were in that first marriage, and some of the things that, like, what was some of the fallout or the things that happened to you during that time, either when the abuse was happening or after, that you had to deal with and overcome, whether like it was a choice on yours, how you viewed yourself or what you did, or things he did to you? Like, what happened during some of that time that you had to overcome and get through in order to get to this healthier place? Because it sounded like you were in a really low spot, physically, mentally, emotionally, all that.
It was very tough. It took years. It took years to even trust another man. It really did, because it's like, how can someone love you and treat you like that? You know, I've always thought of love as being with this person and your best friend, and you love each other. And when you've been rejected, you know, physically rejected, like he doesn't want to have nothing to do with you. I mean, there was just no relationship. I mean, you probably have a better relationship with a roommate than I did in my marriage, you know. And I would come in from work, and he would call me names. Where you been? And he would go at it with the names. And it's like, wow, why would you do that to me? I've been at work all day. You can call my boss. I mean, I remember till this day, I'm like, call my boss. Here's the number. Call, you know, ask him where I was. And, but what got me through it, I think eventually was really my faith when I became a Christian, because I struggled for a long time. Even after that, I was just grateful that I had you know, that I was able to leave, because I was trapped. I mean, I was trapped. I was so scared for my life. And I'm telling you, I want to tell every woman out there that if you're in a situation like this, please seek help. Please tell someone. I didn't tell anybody. So nobody even knew that I was going through this stuff. And that's why, I mean, it almost killed me. It literally almost killed me. And it came to the point where I was like, okay, if I don't leave, this guy's going to kill me. It's either, you know, I'm just going to get myself sick so much that my heart is just going to stop, or he's going to physically kill me. And I found out later that he grew up in a very abusive home. When I signed the papers, he was on his knees crying. He said, I'm so sorry. Please give me another chance. By that time, I was done. I was like, I've given you 5 years of my life. I am done. I cannot give you any more. But he told me, he said, my dad was an alcoholic. He abused all of us, he's like me and my sister and my mom. He said he stabbed me when I was a kid. He dragged me with a car when I was a kid. And I said, why didn't you get help? Why didn't you tell me this stuff before? You know, because I didn't even know. I mean, I thought he had an okay life when he was growing up. So one thing that I did do when I was with him, thinking it was going to fix my relationship, was get breast implants. I went in and I thought that because I lost so much weight, and I thought maybe by getting breast implants, it would give me more self-esteem, and maybe it would even fix my relationship with him. But
so you did that for him, or he suggested that to you?
No, I did that for him.
Thinking that
yes, I did that for him. Yes.
Wow.
I also had an abortion. I got pregnant when I was with him, and I was terrified because I remember the smell of coffee would make me sick. I'm like, what's wrong with that? Why is this smell just bothering me all of a sudden? And I told someone, they're like, you may be pregnant. Go get it checked. I'm like, no, it's not possible. It's not possible. So I went to, I lived on the base at the time, and I went to the hospital, and they took the test, and sure enough, the lady, she's like, you're pregnant. I said, no, that can't be right. That can't be right. She said, okay, let's do a blood test. So I did a blood test, came back positive. I said, no, that can't be right. I cannot have a baby with this man. You know, I can't. And she's like, I'm sorry, but you are pregnant. So I went home and called my mom, and I said, Mom, a lot's been going on in this relationship you don't know about, but I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do, you know. And but he didn't want it. He's like, no, you get an abortion. Just I don't want this kid. You get an abortion. And so I had to go to Montgomery, Alabama. At the time we lived in Alabama, and it was terrifying. A lot of people were like, be careful, because a lot of people are against abortion. And at the time, again, I wasn't a Christian. I didn't know this stuff. But people were like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's just a little piece of rice. It doesn't even have a heartbeat. You know, you're only 6 weeks. Don't worry about it. It'll be done very fast. So I paid like $300, and I went to Montgomery, and it was a it was a very painful thing to do. All they do is give you this pill, go right in there and just pull out this baby, you know. And it's the pain coming back. He was driving, and I had to stop. I had to throw up. It was so bad. It was just awful. And for years, I felt so bad that I did that. You know, part of me was like, what did I do? You know, why did I do that? I should have just kept the baby. But then when I became a Christian, I realized that I killed this baby. It was something I did. But God is merciful, and God is forgave me for all that mess. Once I accepted him, he said, you know what, you're okay. You're my daughter, and everything you've done before, put it behind you. Let's start over. Let's start over. I forgive you. But for the longest time, I struggled with that. I struggled with a lot of pain. A lot of pain came from that. And now I'm grateful to have my little kids, God gave me the chance to have children again. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned the implant thing, and I know you've posted a couple things on like your website and YouTube about that, of just the pain, physical pain that you went through with it, but also the emotional pain afterwards. And you can kind of share a little bit about that journey, because that was pretty traumatic, I think, from what you've shown and shared about.
Yeah. So I had the implants put in when I was in my 20s. They were saline breast implants. I don't know if you know the difference, but saline is like saltwater base, and then silicone is it's just silicone. But at the time when I got mine done, silicone was out of the market, because they brought in silicone, but it was leaking into people's body when they were ruptured, and it was literally killing people, like making them so sick that they had to be on medication for the rest of their life. So when I had mine done, the only thing that was available was saline. So I got them done by a military doctor in Alabama, and they were fine. But again, they didn't bring me any. My self-esteem was just as low. The struggle was still there, even though I had that done. But over 10 years later, when my husband met, we had children. I was pregnant with my boy and my daughter again, and I breastfed both of them. And after maybe I was like 12, it was like 12 or 13 years after I had them done. And I thought, you know what, why not go ahead and get them done again? Because a lot of times you have to switch them up after 10 years, because if not, they can rupture, they can thin out, they can have problems. So after breastfeeding, I thought, you know what, I'll just go ahead and do them again. Well, I went with silicone this time, and I found a surgeon in Savannah, got them done. I went bigger than I should, and I hated them. I was so unhappy with them. So I was like, I wish I never got them done again. But 5 years ago, I started getting sick. Out of the blue, I started getting really tired, just exhausted. And it's not like me. I'm like, my husband calls me the tornado, because I'm like, this is, all over the house. So I was just extremely tired. I started having pelvic pain. I was constantly going to my OBGYN, and I'm like, I'm having pain. There's something wrong with me. They would test me. There's nothing wrong with you. Then I started having extreme burning on my left side, and I went to see a neurologist. They did all kinds of testing. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your back. Then I started to have pain and needles all over my body. My body was so inflamed on the inside because it was fighting, and I didn't know all this was happening. My skin would feel like a bruise, like you couldn't even touch me. It felt so bad. But I had headaches, I had hair loss, I had just all kinds of symptoms. And I went to doctor after doctor, and everybody's like, hey, here's some pills. Here's some pills. Here's some pills. This will fix your problem. And I would have been on probably 7 different kind of pills. I would have been on muscle relaxer, nerve pain, birth control, antidepressant, you name it, I would have been on it. Thankfully, I didn't take any of those things. I did take some pain medication to begin with at nighttime, because I was in so much pain I couldn't sleep. It was awful. I prayed and cried, and cried. My husband was so supportive, and my kids felt so bad for me because they could see the pain in my face every day. And I went to see my surgeon about it, and he's like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. It happens sometimes where the implant has like a little problem with it, and the shell that's surrounding it, which is the scar tissue, will harden, and it will squeeze the implant." And he said, it's not a big deal. We can go in and cut it open, and it would release the implant. And I still didn't think it was right. I was like, there's something else going on. But after all the testing, everything came normal. Blood test, everything. So I would just sit there and cry. And my husband's like, honey, we did all the tests we can do. They can't figure out what's wrong with you. Maybe there's nothing wrong with you. I'm like, there is something wrong with me. I'm like, I know my body. There is something wrong with me. my surgeon suggested that I would go home and I would massage so that I can loosen up the scar tissue. Well, every time I massage, I release more toxins into my body and I would come out sick, just more sick, you know. And so the Lord one day just like, take him out. Just take him out. Be done with it. So I called the surgeon and said, I want him out. So 2 years after this battle, after surgery, I come out and here it was, a ruptured implant that's been ruptured for God knows how long. The silicone's been leaking to my chest cavity, making me sick, making me ill. My body was in a fighting mode, trying to get rid of this toxicity coming in for years into my body. And I'm like, there's the problem. And nobody knew. My mammogram didn't detect it. I took a test a week before my surgery. And the lady calls me. She said, great news, no rupture detected. A week before surgery. I'm like, this is supposed to be a test that detects cancer. Mm. And you tell me you can't even detect a ruptured implant? That's scary. That's super scary. And so that came out. Immediately, my energy came back after a couple of weeks. The headaches went away. Just certain things are disappearing. I'm still battling tachycardia from it. And I'm still battling the burning on my left side. Some of the nerve damage is still there. I actually had the tachycardia attack 2 days ago, Saturday. It kicked in at 9 o'clock in the morning. I woke up doing something and bam, my heart went up to 215. Thankfully, I had some medication that I was given, so I was able to take it. And for 12 hours, it was at 150. And when it's like that, I can't do anything. It just comes on like you turned on a button, and there's nothing I can do about that, you know. So it's just the toxicity is still there, and every once in a while, it just makes my heart, you know, go off, and there's nothing I can do. So I'm actually going to see a surgeon in a couple of weeks and see if I can get maybe an ablation done, possibly to get the electrical system fixed in my heart, which I don't think that's what the problem is. I think it's the silicone, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. So we're going to keep doing a lot of praying until then.
Yeah, it's quite a journey, all stemming from being in a relationship where you don't feel valued and loved, and you're just trying to do something to get the attention you deserve in a relationship and feel the way you should, which is loved and valued, and that you're beautiful, and that we're supposed to be married and it's supposed to be good, as opposed to abuse. And that to see that's where it all happened from is such a sad thing. But you know, and you're probably not the only one, and I'm guessing that's why you're becoming more vocal and being an advocate and just putting yourself out there to try to reach other women, but men too. And hey, you know, this kind of stuff, you don't have to do this, or if you do, there's ways to overcome it. And why is that so important to you right now to be vocal? And I don't mean like vocal, just you want to be famous, but vocal to share your experiences of what you went through with abuse and how you viewed yourself and that experience. And, you know, why do you see that being so important right now?
Well, you know, every time I'd be at church, or someone shared a testimony or something that happened to them, I felt this like desire inside me. It's like, get up, speak up, speak up. You know, it's weird. It's like, just get up and tell people what happened to you. You know, and all the things that's happened to you, from being poor to overcoming stealing, to overcoming, you know, the abuse from your grandma, to overcoming an abusive relationship, to overcoming all these things. You know, go out there and share this with people. And every time I read my Bible, the Lord is like, just go out there, go in faith and share with as many people as you can. And every time I tell my story, people are like, you need to read a book. I mean, you need to write a book. You need to, you know, just go out there and tell people your story, because it's amazing. And so I decided when coronavirus hit, my kids were at home from
I can relate to that.
Yeah, from March, and they actually worked so hard. They finished their school 2 months or 1 month before everybody finished their school. And my son, my daughter, and my husband have been on me for years. Go out there, share your story. Go out there. I'm like, it's easy for you to say. Sure. I'm a mom. I'm busy. I don't have time to be sharing my story. And so they've been on me. They've been, you know, they're like, Mommy, you can do it. You know, you got such a great story. You can do it. So my son helped me And he helped me figure out some of the YouTube things and what to do. And he was my little photographer and all these things from my thumbnails. And so I decided to just start a YouTube channel, because by doing that, I felt like I could reach more people, broad everywhere, with my faith. I can share that with people in Morocco and people in France, with the breast implant thing. I can share that with anybody in the world, really, because everybody, a lot of people have breast implants. The abuse can, anybody can relate to that in any country. So I just figured, you know what? And I actually speak Arabic and French, which eventually I would like to make videos with those languages as well to kind of help other people. So for now, we're going to stick with the English because I just started this 3 months ago. But so I decided to just start, sharing my testimony, sharing what happened to me with the breast implants. And I've actually had people already reaching out to me with the breast implant issue. I have 2 women who are getting explanted soon because of my story. It inspired them to do that. They're actually 2 of my friends that I didn't even know about that were having problems. One of them is having tachycardia attacks nonstop, like all day, for days, and she had no clue. And she's like me. She's like, she would go to the doctor and get blood tests done, and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with you. Go home." And she's like, "I know I'm not crazy, but this is happening to me, and I need to fix it." And she said, "After I saw your story on YouTube, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that my breast implants could do that to me." So she's gonna get, she's scheduled to get them out, and another girl is scheduled to also get hers out. And like I said, there's many women out there who have breast implants and have no problem. But then there is the other group like me who have suffered. My depression was awful. I went through such a depression because I would get up and I was in so much pain. I would drop my kids off to school. And it was a fight to clean the house, to make dinner, to wash clothes, to go get them back from school, to just take care of my husband's needs and my children's needs. And it was a battle. And I just cried. I'm like, "Lord, just take me. I can't do this. I don't know what's wrong with me. Nobody could figure it out." And I was so depressed. It was awful. And I'm just grateful that the Lord came through, and he's like, "I'm going to take care of you. You're my kid. I got you. I'm going to show you the way." And he came through and showed me the way and saved me from this mess, that I put myself in. So if I can share this with anybody, if I can share my testimony and all these things that I've been through and help one person, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool to put yourself out there and try to help others. And just have a couple questions as we close down. And one of them was just what it's been like for you as a wife in a healthy relationship.
Yes.
And now a mother.
Yeah.
And you have a son and a daughter?
Yes.
So
and I have also stepkids as well.
Yes. Okay. So you have a daughter, and what you've learned from your experiences that you've taken, either you didn't realize or you did realize and want to take it with you to being a wife and a mother now, from how you grew up with abuse, how you were in an abusive relationship, especially just like your worth and your body image, and you have a daughter now. And, was there things that you didn't realize, some of that baggage you were taking into being a wife and a mother, that you had to fight against, or you just knew like, I have to make sure my mind doesn't go here to take it into the family I'm in now?
Yeah. I think it's very important that no matter who you are, if you go through anything, you really need to fix what you're going through before you go into another relationship. It's so important. And I talk about that in the video of my abuse relationship. You have to, because if you take that stuff with you, you're just going to create more problems in that relationship, and those people don't deserve it. Like my husband, he's an amazing, godly man, who he's wonderful in every way. And I'm so blessed to have him in my life. And we've been married 19 years, almost 20 now. And, I wanted to, because he treats me like I'm so, like I should be treated, it just makes me want to do more for him, because that's what it should be. It should be about loving each other, caring each other, caring each other through hard times. When you get married, it's for the good and the bad. It's not just always for the good. Our relationship might not be perfect, and nobody's is, but we have an amazing relationship because we try so hard to make it work all the time. We're always trying to read books and go to seminars and do different things to create, to create a great environment, not only for us, but for our children, because I want my kids to grow up in a way that, not the way I grew up in. I want them to have everything they want, but at the same time, I got to watch out not to do too much for them, which I tend to do that. Mm-hmm. I tend to do too much for them sometimes. But my daughter, she knew the breast stain, even though she was little. She knew the difference when I had surgery. She's like, oh, what happened, Mommy? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't tell her at the time because she was too little. I said, oh, I just had to have surgery. Mommy wasn't feeling well, because she was too little to know. But I just told her, she turned 12. I sat her and my son down. I said, I want to share something with you. And they know about my abusive relationship. They knew about the breast implants. They know about all of it, because I want them to know what Mommy went through, so they don't make the same mistake. And I hope and pray they don't make the same mistake. But my daughter, she won't wear anything short. She won't wear anything revealing. She chooses not to, and I try to be the example for her. I wasn't always like that. I didn't dress up like that. When I was in my 20s, I dressed up very inappropriately. But by God's grace, He changed me, took smoking, drinking, all that stuff away from me, and changed me and molded me to be the person I am today. And another thing with the breast implant is, I'm so grateful that I was able to take him out, because I can't tell her not to have him if I have him. How can I say, don't have breast implants if I have them? How can I tell them, don't smoke if I'm smoking? Or don't drink if I'm drinking? That's just me now. I know everybody's different, but that's how I think. I can't tell my kids not to do something if I'm doing it. And I can't be an example for them if I'm doing it. So, I feel like, they're little and they need all the help they can get, especially in the world we live in. And as a mom, I want to do everything I can to equip them in any way that I can to be the best they can be, and thankfully they have a really good, godly daddy who also carries them through that. And, God is part of our life 24/7. We do devotionals with our children every night. We all read our Bibles in the morning. They read their Bibles before they go to school in the morning. That was Daddy's stain. He would get up and read his Bible. And I was so jealous of that, because I'm like, I want to sit down and read my Bible. But as a mom, you're always running in the morning. But I make the time to spend time with the Lord and be in His Word every morning, because He makes such a big difference in my day. And our children will sit there for 10 minutes and read their Bible before they go to school, and He carries them through their day. And so he's a big part of our life. They know I was Muslim, and they always like, Mommy, you need to save your family. They always, we need to pray for your family, Mommy. They're lost. And so they love the Lord, and they get baptized. And I'm just so grateful that they're like that. It makes me so proud to see how much they love God and how much they love others, so.
Well, I do have one other question now.
Yeah.
Now that you were talking about it, but how does your family, especially that are back in Morocco and they're Muslim, how have they handled your faith, but also your experiences since you've been here with finding out about the abuse and breast implants and all of those things kind of combined? Because you mentioned not telling them some of those things, but they found out about it eventually.
Yeah.
And how's that relationship been like with them, with the faith and the past pain that you've went through?
Well, I still have family in Morocco and France, and all my mom's family is in Morocco, and my dad, my real dad. But my mom and my sisters live in France with my stepdad. So I told my mom when I became a Christian, I was kind of scared, but I told her, I came out and I said, I became a Christian, and she said, no, you can't be a Christian. You're Moroccan, you're Muslim. So she couldn't separate those two, and I couldn't either at the time before, because, so she was like, no, you can't do that. I said, Mom, it's two different things. Moroccan is, my origin, but being a Muslim is a religion, and I can become a Christian if I want to. But she made me feel like I killed somebody, It was just like such a big thing, like, no, you cannot do that. No, you're going to disown your family. I said, Mom, no, I love you. So I finally gathered my thoughts and I talked to her again. I said, Mom, listen, I love you. I love my family. But I said, as much as you love me, as much as everyone loves me, no one can save me from going to hell, okay? I have to make the decision to accept the Lord Jesus and be a Christian so that I can have a relationship with him and I can go to heaven and be with him for eternity. Or if I don't do that, I'm going to be doomed. And you can't stand up for me. You can't tell him, hey, that's my daughter, just let her in. I said, you can't save me. Only Jesus can intercede for me, and she didn't get it at first. And then eventually she did, and I would tell him about God and they're like, quit talking to us about God, But I said, well, he's my father and I love him. And just like I talk about you to other people, I'm going to talk to you about God as well. And so I just pray. We pray for them all the time for their salvation. Now, I did not tell my grandmother because she would have killed me, but she ended up passing away. And I loved my grandmother. I loved her dearly, but she terrified me. We used to send her a little bit of money to help her sometimes, because they struggled over there. And my husband and I would send her some money to help her. And one day I called just to tell her we sent her some money. And I was shaking. I was on the phone. I'm like on the other side of the sea. And I'm like shaking. And then she picks up the phone. On the phone, she's like, hello. And I'm like, hey, grandma, And she started cussing me out. Oh, now you're calling me? Oh, really? I'm like, I'm just calling to let you know I sent you some money. That's all, And she was cussing me out. I'm like, grandma, why are you cussing me out? I sent you some money. You should be excited, But she was tough. We used to call her the Colonel. She was shorter than I am, a little small thing, but she was a powerhouse. And I think a lot of it had to do with the way she grew up.
Yeah.
She, she was obviously, probably 80s, 90s now because she passed away about 10 years ago. But when she was about 13 or 14 years old, she was kind of forced into marriage with an older man. Yeah. She had 14 kids. She lost 4, 2 sets of twins during birth. And so she had a rough time being, when she was growing up. And I think she didn't know how to express her frustration. And she just took it out on everybody around her, including my grandpa. My grandpa was like scared of her. I mean, she would cuss him out too.
Isn't that amazing that a petite little woman like that
she had a
terrify
power.
and abuse everybody?
I know. But she would, I'm telling you, nobody could tell her the truth. Like I became a hairstylist and my mom, she's like, oh, Karima is the flight attendant. I'm like, Mom, why are you lying to her? Just tell her I'm a hairstylist. I'm not ashamed of being a hairstylist, But everybody was terrified. Yeah. But she would beat you. Yeah. She would beat my uncles. They were like man. They were a man, and she would take her shoe and throw it at you. Like if you were on the other side of the room, she couldn't get you. She's like just throw it at your head. She would take our skin when I was little, and if I did something, she would take my skin and like twist it to the point where I had like a bruise. She would pull my hair. She called me all kinds of names, and she called me the daughter of the crazy guy or the crazy man, which that kind of hurt a lot because my dad wasn't around, and that really stayed with me a lot. That word, the daughter of the crazy man. That's just.
Well, and anybody can be abusive. I think sometimes if you're not in an abusive relationship or don't come from that, you're just like you have in this mind of what kind of people are abusers. And it really can be anybody. It's not just a physical thing. It's mental, emotional, sexual, like all of it. Yeah. And from hearing your story, you said it with your grandma, but then also with your ex-husband. It's like they have a story, and because of their painful story, it became part of your painful story. Yeah. And the quote that always stuck with me is like, hurt people end up hurting people. Yeah. And a lot of times you don't know about it. You're just a little kid. Okay, grandma is being abusive. Well, you don't know all this until later, maybe. Yeah. Your husband, you didn't even know about it when you were married, and you find out later, and that's main reason why all this is happening. And it's, again, more reason why to share things with people, not only to share your story with other people so it can help other people's situations, but even sharing when you're in those moments too of, wow, if my husband would have told me this, maybe we would have got counseling or we could have worked on it, but it was too late and all this abuse already happened. And you were fearful of sharing things that you were going through with abuse and how you viewed yourself because you were scared to tell somebody else and you just couldn't do it. And we just put ourselves in these kind of bondage situations of going through things that we don't have to, but we don't have the answers of how to get out of it. So I'm saying all that because I appreciate you being willing to share that because there's so many people that are out there that are in a physically or mentally abusive relationship,
Yeah.
and have grown up being abused and don't realize how it's affecting them now, or the relationship they might end up in, because they're just used to it.
Yeah.
And we had that with our guest last week too.
Yeah,
It's just
that-
like,
that
I
bring-
married a
Yeah.
man who's just like my husband,
Yeah,
and like
I
never
remember-
thought I
yeah.
would, but I did, because that's
Yeah.
what I knew. And
Yeah.
we just put ourselves in those situations. And for you, we always love to end the podcast with a challenge for people. And you've experienced a lot of things, being in a different country, moving to a different country, the abuse, the body stuff, the coping mechanisms, the faith. And what are just simple ways that somebody could have or did enter into your life, and they can just do something simple? Like, when I was going through this, if somebody would have just done this, because I couldn't do it for myself,
Yeah.
if they would have done this, it would have helped. And looking back on your life now, like, just everyday people that are listening to this right now, if they know someone that's going through something like you went through,
Yeah.
you can do this little thing, and it can make a big difference, and maybe lead to other things
Yeah.
that are helpful.
I think it's important that we open our eyes around us, because there's people hurting all around us all the time, and we don't realize it. We go to church, for example, and we see everybody dressed up, looking nice. Like, when I was going through my breast implant thing, I had a smile on my face. I looked just like this. You wouldn't even know I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
I hid it very well because I didn't want anybody to know. I was like, nah,
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know what people are going through. So it's very important that we keep our eyes open and share our stories, because we may not, it's so important that we share what we've been through, because when I share my story, people are like, oh my gosh, I went through the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
So it's important we not only we keep our eyes open, but seek to help someone. You don't know who you're talking to. If you're talking to someone and they're struggling in their marriage, pray with them, pray for them until hopefully they get some help with that situation. And like in my video, I say, please just seek help. Tell someone, tell one person, just so one person know.
Mm-hmm.
So at least you can get that person to pray with you, be there for you. I couldn't talk to anybody. I didn't speak the language, and that stuff was killing me from the inside out. It was poisoning me, because I was keeping all this information.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing. I like, get a journal and start writing what's happening to you. Get it out of your system. That's another thing you can do. And I think, for all of us, like I said, just try to help someone out there, because everybody's struggling in a different way. And so if you've been through something, why not help someone that has the same problem?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why I started a YouTube channel, because I feel like we all have stories to tell. Why not encourage somebody else out there that's going through the same thing? It doesn't cost me anything to tell my story. Yeah, people know my life, but who cares? At least if I die tomorrow, I know I shared my story and I helped maybe a person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. What's the big deal if somebody didn't know that I was in an abusive relationship, or I was stealing when I was a kid, or
Mm-hmm.
what is it? People are like, oh, I don't want to say that because I'm fearful what people are going to think about me. Like, really, who cares? That's your past, right? It's something you've been through. Everybody's been through something. And if you can be, open and just share your story with someone, I'm telling you, there's so many people out there that are like, oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I didn't know, or that you helped me so much. You opened my eyes to this. And that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I started that. And in the Bible, my verse in my YouTube channel, it's 1 Thessalonians 5:11, and it just says simply, encourage one another and build each other up. We're in a time of our lives where everybody's like, just button heads. Everybody's just me, just a bunch of selfishness, and it's all about me, and who cares what everybody else is doing out there, and so much hate. And it's like, let's just love one another. Let's love God and love other people, and let's just, send a word of encouragement to somebody,
Yeah.
A verse, or just a little word of encouragement, or give a hug to someone, or buy someone a meal, or, call that lady who's struggling with kids, a single mom, and say, hey, let me watch your kids for a minute. And you go get your nose done. I don't know, something.
Do something to help somebody else.
Just do something to help someone else.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that and being our guest and being vulnerable and
Thank
being
you.
willing to share your story. And, it's not just you're putting your family out there by sharing it too. And, but you've already shared it with them, and you want them to learn from it. So I really appreciate that.
Thank
And what I get from hearing your story too is, like I said before, like, hurt people hurt other people. And that's happened in your case. And if you're someone that you're able to take a step back and realize, hey, I'm hurting people sometimes with my words and actions right now,
Yeah.
Well, it might be because you're hurt in some way that you're not admitting or recognizing.
Yeah.
And, we always like to say empathy requires proximity too. So when you say, look to see if people are hurting around you, like sometimes you have to get closer to people to see what they're going through, and not from the social media side of it, or like from a distance, like at church where everybody's good. Like you have to have that conversation and get a little bit closer, because there might be somebody like you who is uncomfortable, and you have to get uncomfortable to get to know them. So I appreciate you being uncomfortable here and sharing things with us. So
thank you for having me. This is amazing, and I think you guys are doing a wonderful job with your podcast. You're helping a lot of people out there. You're giving a voice to the people who don't have a voice a lot of times, and and you're helping these people, because by them coming in here and sharing their story, you're making them feel special. You are.
Well,
so
thank you.
I just want to let you know that.
Makes it feel all worth it. So I appreciate you being a fan and watching and listening, and now being on. And
thank you.
It was really good. So thank you so much. Thank you, Karima. Thank you, Quinn, for producing. Thank you, City Church, for hosting. This has been Neglected. You reach us at #ForTheNeglected, #ForTheNeglected, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks. Peace.